Well, hello and welcome back to Between the Sundays. This is just a conversation for us here at Generations Church, really between the Sundays, taking what we do on Sunday and helping it to extend and matter beyond Sunday on a Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And
Don't forget Wednesday.
That's I always skip over. So I say Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. So all the days, but it really is just a conversation for us to continue that. And so it's been a few weeks because we've been in the middle of a series that we do annually. We've actually done it twice in this calendar year. We'll talk about why in just a minute. But we do this series every year called At the Movies. Other churches do something similar. Not every church, obviously, but some do. And it's just an opportunity for us to take movies, Hollywood, streamed movies, that kind of thing, and use those stories to really help tell what we say is the greatest story ever told, the gospel of Jesus Christ. And one of the kind of the reason that we do that is, I say one reason, but kind of twofold. One, Jesus told stories as he walked and did ministry. He told stories to reveal larger truths, these parables. We've actually used parables a couple times this calendar year. But also, two, it helps us to realize that the gospel and the stories of gospel, grace, mercy, love, forgiveness, those things are throughout culture.
Yeah.
I mean, they're in movies and music and conversation. And I mean, as we do life. And so it's always good for us to be able to see those things and be reminded that this is not something that we just do on Sundays.
Yeah.
Like we can see these themes and narratives in our lives and in conversation throughout every part of our life. And so I love that part of the series, but I'd love for you guys, we spent 3 weeks and we just concluded it. We're recording this on Monday. We just concluded it yesterday. So the last 3 Sundays, we looked at the movie Top Gun Maverick the first week. You're
Such a good
rocking
movie.
your goose stash, Pastor Carson. I'll introduce everybody in a second too. And then the second week, we looked at The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind, which is probably a movie most people had not seen yet.
Such a good movie.
And then yesterday, we went back, kind of a classic sports movie. We did Remember the Titans. And so today I've got Pastor Aaron White, who's our associate pastor, Pastor Carson Hill, youth and young adults, and I've got Garrett Snyder, who's our communications director. And so I'd love to just hear from you guys, like what was your favorite takeaway or favorite part of the 3 weeks? It doesn't have to be something from each week necessarily, but just something from the 3 weeks that kind of stood out to you. I'll just kind of go in that order, and then we'll kind of reverse it in a minute when we ask a different question.
Yeah. Besides the movies being just really good, and I think my favorite movie was for sure the second week, The Boy That Harnessed the Wind.
Yeah.
I love Remember the Titans. Like I can almost, I can quote a lot of it. But that was just a really good, impactful, movie that people haven't seen most likely. It's not like Top Gun where it's blockbuster sales and stuff like that. So great movie. My favorite Sunday though was probably yesterday.
Yeah.
I just felt like the energy in the room, like the excitement. We had hot dogs.
Yeah.
We had cornhole. It was Jersey Day. It was just a fun day.
Yeah.
And then upstairs in kids, we had costumes. Kids were in costumes. They played games.
Yeah.
So it was just a great day. And you can't beat Remember the Titans. Like such a good movie. But I think each week it was just impactful, and it wasn't like the same each week.
Yeah.
It was different
different
movies,
every week.
different messages. And each week just wasn't the same.
Yeah.
And that's what I think I loved about it, you know. So
That's good.
it was
I
a good
love
3 weeks.
Pastor Carson?
Yeah, hot dogs were huge, honestly. I think I had like 6 yesterday. So, but for me, like, the fact that we did The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind, and it was like a smaller movie that people haven't seen, but it's such a good story, was
Right.
so impactful. And then, like, I think the big thing for me in that was, I think God's telling stories like that all the time.
That's
I
right.
think we just need to open up our eyes to see it. But like it just seems like, obviously this one was huge. Like they figured out like an irrigation system through a windmill. Like that's
It's
nuts.
incredible.
So that's like cool.
You just
like
ruined the movie for
spoiler
everybody that
alert.
hasn't seen it, but it's fine. It's
Spoiler
fine.
alert.
At the end of Sixth Sense, the guy
was just
dies,
sitting there
but
watching
whatever.
2 hour
He's
movie.
dead, yeah.
Hey, sorry, we weren't streaming it anyway. It's fine if you haven't seen it by now. Come on, but
I'm just kidding.
but like the fact that like God like is looking to do things that are miraculous
Yeah.
through the hands of common people every single day,
It's good.
and we just have to be willing to participate. I think that stuck with me as just to wrap that one in a little.
Well,
Yeah.
and before we go to Garrett, like I think I don't want to jump ahead, but I do feel like one of my favorite like moments through the whole 3 weeks was watching the kind of prayer response at the end of week 2
Mhm.
in each service, because again, the movie in a nutshell, they're in drought. They don't have harvest. There's no food. They're going to starve. And this young boy takes, bicycle parts and turns it into a windmill, which powers a battery, which powers a water pump, which draws water out of a well to irrigate their farm. So they were able to plant seed. But the idea of like, we want God to do something specific, and God answers prayers, but a lot of times he does it in a different way.
Mhm.
He takes wind to make water.
Yeah.
And so I do think we asked at the end of that message, like, if you need a miracle, if you need God to do something, and maybe he answers your prayer in a different way, like just lift
Mhm.
your hand. And I mean, I don't want to exaggerate. I mean, maybe more than 100 hands across those two services
Yeah.
of people that are trusting God for a miracle or need God to answer a prayer in a different way than they were even imagining. That was a powerful, maybe the
Yeah.
most lasting moment of the series,
Mhm.
as we prayed for miracles and we prayed for people's lives to be impacted. So yeah, I loved that moment. Garrett, what about you?
Yeah, I think just kind of touch on like kind of reiterate what they said is like it feels like every time we do it, there's a couple movies that are just like classics or something that everybody knows. It always seems like not like the sleeper one, but the ones maybe less seen is just like really like speaks to people in a different
Yeah.
way. And
Mhm.
outside of that, like what I really like about the movies is again we've talked about it before. It's a really high invite series for us. It's a great way it's a great series to invite neighbors and families and friends who don't typically come to church or maybe have and kind of fell out of the habit of doing so. It's a great way to get them here. But just kind of seeing just almost like people's reactions or like shift their mood shift when they come through the front door and they kind of
Mhm.
see
Yeah.
the decorations and like popcorn and candy for breakfast and
Yeah.
the way
Come
that we
on.
kind of like attack this kind of series in the way of like just bringing um the Bible to them in a different like
Yeah.
light and perspective, and
It's
it
good.
really opens up. Um, I feel like we see people leaving that service a lot of times, like just like in a really like thought provoking, just kind of
Yeah.
attitude. Just you can tell it like really resonates with them. I feel like very often like we have more people kind of come to us, ask us questions and things like that throughout that, and it's just cool to see how movies can kind of spark that in those folks. So
Yeah.
it's always a great time for me. Like you said, like you mentioned, this year we got to do it twice, um which is cool. We had we did 6 different movies between those
Yeah.
two series, and it was just a really cool time for the church this year. And the new folks that have been coming and haven't experienced that before, and
Mhm.
just the excitement of people that have been here for years and have experienced that every year, and just seeing like how excited they get around that series.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, we did it twice this year. So we did it earlier in the spring of 2022, back in March.
Mhm.
But we felt in our planning sessions as a staff that it fits better in our fall ministry calendar.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to move it to the fall, but we didn't want to wait 18 months from the time we last did it to do that again in the fall of 2023.
Mhm.
And so what we decided to do was to go ahead and put it into this fall calendar, do it for 3 weeks. And so we did that, and that allowed us to kind of go ahead and do that as we prepare for our holiday season.
Mhm.
And so we did it twice in this year, but I do think even it was spread out. It was March
Yeah.
and October or
Yeah.
whatever. But the 3 themes that I think we hit on this time that were a little different than what we hit on in the spring. The first week when we used Top Gun Maverick, we talked about hurt and pain.
Mhm.
We talked about kind of, again, if you haven't seen the movie, which I know one of us hasn't seen the movie, but
But he has the stash, though.
but just hurt and pain. Like, your pain may not be my pain,
Yeah.
but we all have something that we're dealing with or carrying.
Mhm.
Then the second week, The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind, again, we talked about miracles and God's creativity to use people to, help solve problems and answer prayers. And then yesterday with Remember the Titans, we just talked about like team and family
Yeah.
and overcoming differences to come together for a greater
Mm-hmm.
purpose. And I did love yesterday, just hanging out in the lobby afterwards. That
Yeah.
was a ton of fun. So we had a lot going on during that month. It was a really fun month, fun several weeks.
Didn't you launch a book?
Yeah, good
Did you
segue
launch a
right
book
there.
in the middle of this?
No, we did. We were going to talk about that just quickly. Like, Corrie and I did release a book during the middle of this series last week or so, but called Your Marriage Matters: Discovering What God Can Do with Your I Do. And it really was birthed out of our church.
Mhm.
The content that we've shared in couple to couple events and in marriage counseling and in sermon series about family and marriage. But it was just a labor of love, which I've said, and I say no pun intended, but absolutely pun intended, because it really is just out of this house. What we believe, Generations Church, that faith is for you to personalize and to possess for yourself and to pass it on.
Yeah.
And that really starts by living out this great love story of Christ and the church exemplified through husband and wife.
Mhm.
There's some funny stories. There's some obviously scriptural guidelines and insights into what healthy marriage looks like. And we also are doing a podcast to kind of go along with that. But Garrett, you helped us kind of form some of the, obviously the cover and graphics and things that is a part of, what you
Yeah.
are skilled and gifted to do. But just a takeaway or anything specific from the book that just stood out to you?
Yeah, I think it's, like you said, we've hit on marriage so much here as a church, because it is so important to us.
Yeah.
I think it only made sense that you and Corey kind of get together and put those thoughts to paper and make this resource available. What I love about it is that it is packed full, with just life experience,
Mhm.
from both sides of marriage, being a husband and a wife, and things that I think are really like crucial and important to building and maintaining a strong marriage, but also
Mhm.
shows that like everybody goes through like similar struggles and maybe look a little different than the ones that you go through in your marriage, but
It's good.
the struggle is there at some points.
Yeah.
And it's learning, this book like really like shows like how to navigate like those struggle times and then the high moments as well and things like that. And then I personally love that it's kind of packed full as well with just some really hilarious stories, from y'all's uh relationship and just
Mostly just me being an idiot.
Yeah. But it's good stuff, man. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I think it's gonna move a lot through the couples here at Generations Church, and then those that are
great.
kind of picking up the resource as well, at other churches and online, and it's a great thing.
That's
I
great.
think the title alone, like, it just challenges you to, like, make sure that you're focusing on your marriage. Like,
Yeah.
we get so busy, with life, and you and I have kids. Pastor Carson has one on the way. Like, we get so busy with
Let's
kids,
go.
and we get so busy with sport, and
About to get so
the
busy.
busyness of life that we need to be challenged sometimes to make sure that like our marriage is first, like
Yeah.
God's first, and then
Yeah.
like our marriage
yeah.
is, it matters.
Yeah.
And I think there's a reason like y'all did marriage first, like,
Yeah.
so a
Yeah.
book on marriage first, but it
Yeah,
really has challenged me to like, man, to focus more and to put more time and put more energy,
Yeah.
to work on, my marriage and to work on others' marriage,
That's great.
so
Well, obviously the title for us, it has double meaning. I mean, these are the matters of our marriages,
Mhm.
communication and conflict, and those types of intimacy, whatever.
yeah.
But it is that your marriage matters for some of the reasons that you think, but
Mhm.
for other reasons that you would never even imagine.
Mhm.
And so I do love that we come at it from a different perspective. My parents were married, obviously, until my mom passed away. They were married, happily married. That's what I watched in my home. Corey's mom was not, and so she comes at it from a different perspective. But
Mhm.
we were able to share a lot of different perspectives about marriage. So, speaking of marriage and just thinking about kind of the ladies of our church, quickly, one of the things we got coming up this week, we're prepping for Woven.
Let's go.
Yes, come
And so
on.
we're excited. So if you're watching this on YouTube or listening on your favorite podcast channel this week, leading up to November the 3rd, Thursday night, from 7 to 9. It's our ladies event, and I'm excited about that. Corey and some of her team, they've put together a really great night, great event, and they've got a guest speaker, Sophie Hudson, who's an author and hosts a podcast and is hilarious. I'm excited for her to be here, and just excited for the ladies of our church and our community to be a
Yeah.
part of that. So again, if you're listening, you're watching, we'd love for you to go register and be a part of that night on Thursday, November the 3rd. And so for all of us, until next
Mhm.
time between the Sundays, we hope you have a great week. God bless.